Welcome to CBR. Did you know that Blade can shapeshift? What about his ability to control what's in someone else's bloodstream? Here's a deep dive into all of Blade's powers in the comics, which will most likely be the same in the MCU. Although there are some differences between Blade's current powers in comics and what is included in the Blade movies, there's also an interconnected history between the counterparts. Before the 1998 Wesley Snipes version, Blade was not even a full-fledged hybrid, being only a vampire hunter who's great at it because he's immune to their bites. However, the movie's success made Marvel Comics incorporate the changes to the character. Since then, he is no longer just immune to bites, but also possesses other powers of vampires. This shift in giving Blade some stronger powers was initially explained as coming from Morbius's bite, when the vampire hunter joined Spider-Man in a fight against the villain in Peter Parker. Spider-Man number 7 to number 8 from 1999. However, that specific origin to his powers was later retconned in 2006 during the Blade series, which describes the source coming from his genetics, just like his immunity had always been. Either way, he even has powers at all because he has had vampire enzymes in his blood since birth. Eric Brooks is a dhampir, which means half vampire. His mother was bitten by a vampire named Deacon Frost when she was pregnant, making baby Blade a human-vampire hybrid. That's what we're exploring in today's video. Blade's powers as a human-vampire hybrid being, in addition to his most prominent abilities, all of these combined make him Marvel's greatest vampire hunter and one of its most feared heroes. Eric Brooks doesn't have all the strengths of a vampire, but he also doesn't have all of their weaknesses. Let's list and explain how each works for the character. One of Blade's powers that is strong in levels comparable to full vampires is his heightened senses. He sees things in perfect clarity, even at extraordinary distances, and his sight is also as good in near total darkness as it is in the light. His hearing works similarly, allowing him to hear sounds at great distances and detect sounds that humans can't. The same goes for his sense of smell. He can tell if someone is a human or a vampire from a distance just by smelling them. His olfactory abilities have even been compared to Wolverine's. These enhanced senses extend to a supernatural sense, making Blade capable of detecting the presence of supernatural forces when they approach him. Combined with his super senses, Blade is incredibly stronger than regular humans, with a strength comparable to super soldiers like Steve Rogers. His body produces less lactic acid than humans do, allowing him to endure long fights without ever getting tired. Blade is not just stronger than humans, he's also stronger than many vampires and other supernatural creatures or superpowered characters. His vampire human skin tissue sustains physical trauma, in a way similar to vampires who need to be cut by specific materials. His skin is immune to silver blades, for example, making him even more resistant than vampires. Without any shield or protection, Blade can endure energy blasts, extreme temperatures, and powerful blows unharmed. But Blade is not just strong and hyper-aware. He also performs movements that are so precise and fast that he can fight or run alongside anyone. He can jump several feet into the air, being able to climb buildings and parkour his way around a city easily. He is a master in acrobatics, having no problem accompanying other super agile heroes like Spider-Man. But he's not as fast as some vampires. He's fast enough to dodge bullets at point-blank distance, but there are full vampires out there who can outrun him, like Dracula. Still, for most other Marvel characters, Blade moves in the blink of an eye. While having powers due to being half a vampire is cool, that doesn't mean being half human can't be useful as well. One of Eric Brooks' aliases other than Blade is Daywalker. He became known as the Daywalker because, unlike vampires, he can walk under the sunlight without being harmed. There is one specific kind of sunlight that does harm Blade, which we'll get into later in the video, but not having a vampire's most hindering weakness is a huge strength. And there are even more traditional vampire vulnerabilities that Blade is immune to, like garlic and crosses, thanks to his human blood. He also can't be harmed by silver. He can be shot by a silver bullet, which can harm him to an extent like any kind of bullet, but it being made of silver makes no difference. There is an equally favorable side to being a hybrid. Blade is not only someone who's not affected by everything that traditionally harms vampires, but he's also not affected by every vampire power that humans are affected by. While average humans are transformed into vampires or killed by their bites, Blade doesn't change anymore when bitten. His powers can still evolve when in contact with the blood of a stronger vampire, which we'll also get into later. But a bite by a regular vampire don't harm Blade. He's also immune to mind control, one of the strongest powers in vampires. Another power he has just like all vampires makes Eric Brooks almost immortal. He ages super slowly, staying eternally young thanks to a powerful healing factor. Blade can heal injuries and wounds quickly. If he drinks blood, his healing powers are enhanced. He's not able to regenerate limbs like Deadpool though. In perspective, Blade's healing factor is more comparable to Wolverine's. Now this is arguably the coolest thing Blade can do with his vampire half. He can reverse engineer the vampire bite to suck out harmful substances from other characters' blood. Following the same logic, he can use the bite to deliver substances into the bloodstream of another character. If he ingests something and bites them, they'll be infected by what Blade ingested. He once absorbed a supernatural infection out of Robbie Reyes, the Ghost Rider, and cured guards who turned into Hulks in Avengers number 16 to 20, 2018. But beyond his original powers, Blade keeps acquiring new ones as time goes on. In 2023's Blade number 6, he was helped by Dracula to unlock a shape-shifting ability despite their history of rivalry. In preparation for a bigger threat, Blade asks Dracula to be his mentor. Dracula, as most other vampires in the Marvel Universe, can fully shapeshift. In this story, the Count gives Blade his own blood so he can become capable of shapeshifting as well. And beyond the scope of what his body can do, we also need to discuss Blade's connection to the supernatural and magical sides of Marvel. When dealing with demons and ghosts, Blade is immune to attempts of possession. He can forcibly remove an entity from his own body, performing a kind of self-exorcism. Eric Brooks has a natural talent for magic, and he uses magic spells from time to time, though he mostly doesn't need them. For example, he can use a spell that traps vampire inside a mystical artifact, as seen in Miles Morales' Spider-Man, Volume 2, number 12, 2023. He also has used the Darkhold before. That's technically a weakness as well, because he was not able to resist the psychic pressure of the evil Book of Spells, but also a strength considering how unstoppable it made him. In the Midnight Massacre storyline in Darkhold pages from the Book of Sins number 11, 1992, Blade was corrupted by the Darkhold and took on a temporary demonic form called Switchblade. He started hunting other supernatural or magical characters to absorb their powers. He collected the abilities of Johnny Blaze, Danny Ketch, Hannibal King, Demogoblin, Morbius, Modred, Werewolf by Night, Victoria Montesi, and the clairvoyant Anne Toussaint. He was later freed by Louise Hastings and came back to normal, but his ability to perform magic so well despite not being one of Marvel's magic wielders is pretty impressive. Now, there's also a bad side to being half vampire. One of the weaknesses a vampire's Blade inherited is the need and desire to consume blood. Thankfully, he has a special serum developed by Abraham Whistler that substitutes human blood, allowing him to survive without making victims. This serum provides even better nourishment than blood itself, in fact, allowing him to suppress his bloodlust and stay strong. However, if he goes too long without consuming either blood or serum, he not only becomes weaker but starts craving human blood. A prolonged period without one of these two substances means he would grow weaker and weaker until he died. A single dose of serum can sustain him for 24 hours, even during intense combat, and can also speed up his recovery from severe injuries. Another weakness that needs to be mentioned is the fact that Blade isn't entirely immune to sunlight. Regular sunlight, which comes from what it's called a yellow sun, doesn't harm him. However, the light from a red sun does burn Blade's skin. He needs to stay inside near sunrise and sunset to avoid exposure to the red sunlight, which could kill him in long periods. The good news is that this is such a fleeting type of radiation that it doesn't hinder Blade's title as the Daywalker. Although these are not superpowers, it's also important to mention some of Blade's defining abilities. These are acquired skills unrelated to being a human-vampire hybrid, which add up to making him as powerful as he is. Blade's name is no coincidence. His expertise with bladed weapons is unparalleled, and he earned the alias due to his talent. His quest for vengeance against Dracula led him to China, where he trained under the legendary vampire hunter Orgy Jones. After intense training, Blade became an expert marksman and impressed other hunters with his skills with swords and knives. Blade uses a variety of weapons, including teakwood daggers, adamantium swords, a Kevlar body armor, and automatic and semi-automatic firearms. He also customizes his weapons for maximum efficiency against vampires and supernatural threats, creating hollow silver bullets filled with garlic, for example. But if he's out of customized firearms, no problem. He's also a master in combat. Blade is a master martial artist with training in nearly every known form of weapon-based and hand-to-hand combat. His primary fighting style is a unique blend of multiple disciplines, including boxing, capoeira, hapkido, kung fu, and much more. Among heroes and villains, and mainly among vampires and supernatural beings, Blade's reputation precedes him. He is feared by even the most powerful of his enemies, and many supernatural creatures hesitate before engaging him in combat. His relentless nature and proven combat record make him one of the deadliest vampire hunters in Marvel history. Blade is also very familiar with the vast occult side of Marvel, which allows him to identify various supernatural creatures and their weaknesses instantly. As we've already mentioned when explaining his talent for magic, he also has knowledge of spells and ancient artifacts, which can be valuable information in the MCU right now. Eric Brooks may not be a super genius, but he's definitely a very intelligent hero who can come up with elaborate plans. Blade's experience traveling the world hunting vampires has also given him fluency in multiple languages, including German, Romanian, and Japanese. With all of these abilities, Blade is one of the characters fans can't wait to see joining the MCU. The announcement of the casting of Mahershala Ali as Blade happened back in July 2019 at San Diego Comic-Con. But so far, Ali's version of the character has never been actually seen in the franchise. Blade's introduction was heavily teased in a post-credits moment of the 2021 movie The Eternals. In that scene, Dane Whitman encounters the Ebony Blade, the magical ancient artifact that will transform him into the Black Knight. Then Mahershala Ali makes an uncredited voice cameo as Blade, asking whether Whitman is ready for that.
Sure you're ready for that, Mr. Whitman?
More recently, in 2024, the pre-MCU version of Blade, played by Wesley Snipes, made his own cameo in Deadpool and Wolverine. With so many years since the announcement of Mahershala Ali's casting, and nothing but a footnote of a voice cameo from him, fans got worried that the MCU's Blade was going to be scrapped. Thankfully, a few months after that, Kevin Feige confirmed Blade is still in the works at Marvel Studios in an interview with Brazilian outlet Omelete. He says it's taking so long because they want to get it right. And that's understandable, considering Blade is a complex character with an incredibly successful pre-MCU franchise.
Which Punisher? There's been like 5 of them.
There's only been one Blade. There's only ever going to be one Blade.
Overall, Blade is a fascinating character. His hybrid nature gives him the strengths of vampires while allowing him to resist many of their weaknesses. However, his need for blood or serum is a significant setback. On top of his vampire-human powers, his proficiency with weapons, martial arts, and magic, combined with his vast occult knowledge, make him one of Marvel's most feared heroes. Blade's introduction into the Marvel Cinematic Universe has the potential to expand the franchise into the realm of supernatural stories, following the tone of projects like the 2022 television special Werewolf by Night or the 2024 miniseries Agatha All Along. With someone as talented as Mahershala Ali confirmed to portray Blade, Marvel Studios has an opportunity to establish him as a major player in the MCU. The post-credits scene in The Eternals suggests that Blade may be forming a supernatural team. We think that's the Midnight Suns, featuring characters like Dane Whitman, after he becomes the Black Knight, and Mark Spector, the Moon Knight. The inclusion of Blade could also lead to the eventual inclusion of Vlad Dracula. He's a character Marvel obviously did not create, just borrowed and reinvented, but he's also an iconic villain in the darker, supernatural Marvel stories. Blade's conflicts with the supernatural could also tie into the growing presence of magical artifacts and dark magic in the MCU. With the importance of characters like Scarlet Witch, Doctor Strange, and Agatha Harkness in recent years, there's a strong possibility that Blade will become entangled in mystical conflicts beyond just vampires. For all these reasons, and all these amazing powers Blade has, we can't wait to see how Marvel Studios will make him fit into their larger narrative.
Who are you people?
My name's Abraham Whistler. You met Blade.
Are you also excited for Blade's inclusion in the MCU? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, thanks for watching CBR.